What's up? Don't forget to subscribe, join the Dreams PS4 Amino, hit the bell whenever you subscribe. I'm Young Text YouTube in Dreams, follow me there, and I'm Young Text on Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe, follow me on Twitch. So this is how you do climbable objects, and at the top part of this object up here, I cloned the ladder, then I made a separate ladder. This part of the ladder right here that I cloned from here, so I went here, here, cloned, put it right here. Then I set this to non-collidable right here so it doesn't collide with anything. And I kind of positioned it in a good spot, as you can see. This way, whenever you are climbing up to the top of the ladder, it doesn't interfere with anything. So you kind of like go through the ladder, you know what I'm saying? The bottom part of the ladder, I like it as collidable, and there's actually an invisible wall behind here so that this can't detect you if you were to try to climb it from behind. So that's why we put an invisible wall behind there. Here's how you would set this wall to invisible. You press L1 and square on it. Then you just turn off the visibility after creating a wall, either in sculpt mode or just cloning this brown one and then downsizing it and doing all that stuff. So in order to enter sculpt mode on an object, you press L1 and X, and I sort of deleted some of the ladder by pressing triangle and then X, and then I just placed this ladder up here. And that's how we got our ladder down. You'll want to make sure there's a platform at the top. And inside of our character, there is a, which one is this? This is the wireless transmitter. Name it. I named it Climb Zone. This should be the transmitter. And this one should be the receiver. So make sure your receiver box looks sort of like that, the hitbox from the receiver or whatever. Pull out an on switch, make sure it's on. If you wanted to make it to where they can't climb the ladder anymore, just turn this off so there won't be a signal sent to it. Put the on switch inside of there. Scope in, then lay down your transmitter. I do believe this is the transmitter, and this is the receiver. The receiver is the one with the hitbox. So this is the transmitter. Name it Climb Zone. Put Climb Zone in here. If there's capitals or spaces, add them to this thing right here. And whenever you lay down your transmitter, again, make sure you're scoped in first, seeing that purple thing at the bottom, and lay the transmitter somewhere around where the leg area is, maybe even right here would be fine. This way the transmitter follows the character wherever it goes. That's why we scope in first by pressing L1 and X, then looking for the transmitter, then laying it down appropriately right there. But you got to press L1 and X on your character first to where you see this. Make sure you see that purple thing before you lay it down. And again, this is the receiver, the one with the hitbox over there. This is the transmitter, the one right here. Name it, then put the name in the receiver one. Lay a tag behind the ladder, name it Ang or Angle. And this would be all you need for your ladder. Inside your character, press L1 and square on your puppet. And go to this right here. Put Ang in here, and put Ang in here. You shouldn't, make sure this one's off. You could turn this off if you want to, and you can also turn off the motion controls by turning this all the way down if you need to. Next, open this up by pressing L1 and X on your character, then press L1 and X on the microchip. Then go into your controller. Pull out a microchip, name it Climb or whatever you're going to name it. So we're going to put all of our logic inside of the microchip. Microchips are like folders that store data. You can also turn them off by pressing L1 and square on them. Open up that microchip, and we're going to put all this data inside of here, and this is all we need to create our climbing physics. Pull out a follower, put the speed of the follower inside of here and here. The one that you put ang for both of these. You might not need to do this, but you should do it, because that's what I did, but you can test out if you need to. And again, ang is just this tag right here that's behind the ladder. Next, the second hardest part would be just getting the animation down. This is all it is for the climb animation if you want to copy mine. So I'll show you how I did it. Trying to move this out of the way, but everything seems to just be moving together. So this is our climb animation as well as another animation. So first let's talk about this bottom one right here. Pull out a keyframe, make sure it's spread throughout the duration of the timeline playthrough. Make sure it's on loop. Make sure the timeline's set to loop. What this does, this keyframe does, is turns off auto look if it's on. It also turns off procedural animation and procedural walk. So we'll press L1 and X on this while it's recording, turn these off. It also might turn off all this stuff right here. So anything you see turned down, do that for yours. Turns down all that. And that should be all it is doing. Label your main character something. You might not need to do this for this tutorial, but I usually label it stuff. And that should be all that keyframe needs. Next, let's talk about the animations themselves. These dots right here are called envelopes. It makes the animation fade in and fade out. So sort of like this. If it'll play. Rewind it. So that's what the dots do, fade in, fade out. You're sort of like trying to make a bicycle walk whenever you're doing ladders. So if that sort of helps you, then that's what you're trying to do for the animation. Some kind of bicycle trick. But here's what I did for my animation. This bottom one right here, none of these keyframes are on keep changes. It's just this foot up, and while you're in mirror mode, click mirror mode for the hands. That way all the hands move together. Just make them like around this. Then you'll want the hands to sort of be the length of the ladder. Then you should be good. And then, you know, this kind of bent where the ankle or whatever that is, you know, this area right here is. And this part like this. And you should be good. Then put the dot like that. And this dot should be right here. Something like that. Then for the first one, it's the left foot, I do believe, and that's the right foot that needs to be up. So press L1 and X to start your recording. And then put the hands in the same position. You might want to clone. That way the hands always stay the same and they're not moving. The reason we have a keyframe that turns off the procedural walk and stuff is so that way the animation's media molecule made over here doesn't interfere with that stuff. This keyframe might also turn off the jump animation. I know I have something doing that, but you could try, you know, doing this one for that also. So that's what that timeline is for. And the strength is inside of the power for that. Set to loop. And put the left stick inside of the speed from your control sensor that is connected to your puppet interface. And it's also set to loop. Next, let's talk about the lookout rotator. Just copy my settings right here and make sure that arrow is pointed where the character is needed to go to the front. Might want to make it more straight, sort of like that. Stay upright, 500. You can make it as fast as you want. Turn down the Y. And that should be all you need for that. What you'll want to do next is, believe this is the transmitter and the other one's the receiver. Plug this into the power of that. And type in ANG down here, and ANG is that tag that's over there behind the ladder. Next, the transmitter, have it in the power of a keyframe. What this keyframe does, turns off the power for the puppet interface as well as the power for the jump animation microchip. I do believe it's also, press L1 to square in your character, turning down the gravity all the way. Yep. See if it's doing anything else. That should be all it's doing. And there's one more keyframe, or one more thing being affected. By this transmitter, and that is the follower. Pull out a follower and make sure that the transmitter's power is inside of the or the transmitter's output is inside of the power of the follower's climb. Set the follower to 0, 100, 100, and then leave everything else the same. We'll talk more about the follower here in a second. Make sure the follower is following climb. Put a tag inside of your puppet named climb. Put the dot for that tag somewhere like this, directly in front of your character and somewhere up here. Sort of like that. You can mess around with it, but this seems to work good for me, having it around this position. You can also put a player tag inside of your character. If you do, put it like somewhere right there. Again, it's very important that this dot is in the right spot, because that's where the follower is taking the character whenever you're climbing up and down the ladder. Next, let's talk about how we move up and down the ladder. I put the control sensor thing up here. You don't have to do that, I don't think, but I did. Next, pull out a splitter. Go to the third tab. Put this inside of the splitter's import. Put Y inside of one calculator. That calculator set to greater than. Put like 15 or 16 down here. Then pull out or copy this calculator. make this calculator less than, you can put -16, or just leave it 0 like I have it, and make sure the y is inside of there and the y is inside of the other calculator's A. From here, there are two keyframes. These keyframes are very important. For the calculator that is greater than, have a keyframe set this to -2.3 and flee. So whenever it's recording, press L1 and X on it, have it set to flee, and set this to -2.3. For the one that is less than, this keyframe, press L1 and X, set to follow at a speed of 1.6. And just to let you guys know, if you guys make your game on a different axis, your axes might be different for how you get it to climb up and down. That shouldn't happen though. I'm just saying, mess around with this if it's not working as perfectly as mine is. It shouldn't be too hard of a fix. And that's what that's doing. Next, you might not need to do this last part, but pull out a keyframe, put the left stick inside of this keyframe. What this keyframe does, it sets this to follow, and it should set this back to 0. You might not need to do that, but it definitely sets it to follow. And I think that's the last piece of logic inside of our microchip. Outside of that, we have this, this, and this. And press L1 and X, and then lay down your transmitter. That's a receiver over there. And this should be it. Shouldn't need the checkpoint. That was for something else I was doing. If I left anything out, let me know. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and all that great stuff. There are some things you can do to polish this up just a tiny bit. But outside of that, this is really a good way of doing it. You can polish up the animations. You can make it to where whenever you're climbing, the character doesn't clip as much, You can also put a wall in front of the ladder so that kind of thing doesn't happen to where he's clipping through it as much, because that way he has something to push against, That kind of stuff you can polish up with and easily do it. I'm going to do more climbing tutorials, maybe, like those Kingdom Hearts Dot Sparkle where it's more parkour-y. That's why I put these here. But for right now, I think this is a good way to do it, a good way to start it off. If you feel I left anything out, just let me know. Subscribe, follow, and follow in Dreams. I'm Young Text YouTube and Dreams. Young Text on YouTube, Young Text on Twitch. And join the Dreams PS4 Amino by typing in Dreams PS4 in the Amino app if you have it. Peace.